Hello and welcome to Tech Terrain. I'm Tony Ndoro. Good to have you with us. We have another jam-packed show for you today, and in focus, imported agricultural goods. South Africa is a net exporter of agricultural products, obtaining valuable foreign earnings. Even though a weaker rand benefits exporters, it severely affects the competitiveness of the sector due to imported technology and inputs becoming more expensive. Africa is highly dependent on imported machinery and parts, and even inputs to animal feeds are imported. This suggests that the entire sector is exposed to this risk. Our guests include Dawie Maree from FNB and Nico Groenewald from Standard Bank, as well as Linda van der Merwe from Corteva. Stay tuned for a discussion around John Deere parts and unparalleled service to its customers, not to be missed. Remember to visit the Tech Terrain website regularly for bonus material, uploaded every week. Let's kick off the show. Right, we kick off the show. We're talking about inputs in the agricultural space on the African continent. We'll also talk about currency volatility, how to mitigate against the volatile currencies at the present moment on the continent, throughout the world, because of course we are all going through this COVID-19 pandemic. It's changed a lot of things. To discuss that, I've got Dawie Maree from FNB and also Nico Groenewald from Standard Bank in South Africa. Gentlemen, good to have you with us. Are you well?
Thank you.
All well, thank you, Tony.
Dawie, can I start with you? Very simple question. Are we as African farmers highly dependent on imported inputs?
Tony, yes, unfortunately we are highly dependent on imported inputs. If you look at the most important ones, fertilizer, fuel, for example, apart from Nigeria and some other smaller countries who produce their own fuel, the majority of those fuel are imported from other countries. And then more important and more relevant these days is technology. That's all imported from other countries, and that comes with a high price ticket.
It does, comes with a very high price ticket as well. And talking about volatile times, and I just mentioned the volatility of currencies, how do you mitigate against that as a farmer now?
I think what is important around mitigation, you can follow two routes, so to speak. You can either hedge for that, which is the more prudent way, or you can speculate, and that's the dangerous way. And one should be mindful of not confusing those two avenues which you can take. The most simple way of doing it is to hedge it, and there's products such as forward exchange contracts to make sure that you at least take the guesswork out of it, and that you can plan then at a specific rate for when your transaction takes place in the future. So it all boils down back to proper planning, proper assessment, taking the necessary advice from the correct people, and that is critically important, so that you don't fall into that trap of leaning towards speculation when it gets to hedging your rate in future. Because what often happens is you need that input in a future date in time, or you need that capital piece of equipment at a future date in time.
Yeah.
And then you need to determine how do you hedge for currency volatility in that environment. And then you take a specific view. Then you know at least that I'm in on that transaction for X amount in terms of what the rate should be. The danger comes in.
Hedging, yeah, I was about to say, because the hedging is a two-edged sword, isn't it?
It can be, but again, it depends what your angle of departure is. If you hedge and you use the right products to hedge for the purpose of taking out the volatility out of it.
Yeah.
But if you hedge with a backdoor to speculate, then it can potentially come back and bite you.
Yeah, very true. So Dawie, you're coming out of the banking sector and you need to advise a new farmer or somebody who's not, before we talk about the well-established farmers, the new farmers, what do you say to that guy right now? What's the best thing for him to do?
Then I think the best thing is, like Nico said, seek those specialized advice. Both from a production side, but also from the cash flow side. When we get a credit application, we always take the more cautious route, the conservative prices, and then we give it another haircut. Not as short as mine, but another haircut. just to make sure that we do make space for any future problems that might occur. So specialized advice is always very important, especially for our new farmers and especially for our African farmers as well, in countries where they don't necessarily have the markets and the open market system like we have in South Africa.
Okay, so I'm a farmer now. I need to get to market, but we know what's happened around the world. Lockdown, COVID-19 has changed so many things. I can't get my product to market. What do I do? How do you assist as the people that funded me in the first place?
I think what is important, and to what Dawie said, especially when you're not a large single producer and you're a part of a smaller group of collaboration is pretty important. You need to make sure that to hedge yourself against these large influences that you can't necessarily control yourself, it is important that you take part in let's say in a group approach to it, so that you're not alone in it. And then if I say collaboration, it's not just necessarily with co-farmers, but with people in the value chain. So to go alone and not find a suitable off-taker of your product at the end of it would probably be a bit dangerous to an extent, or you open yourself up to additional risk because you don't know where your product's going to go. So it is important that you understand at least where your product, because again you sit with a time lag. You plant now, your product is 9 months time is available for harvest, or whatever you do. It might be short time space, but you need to understand where you're going to go with it and not just rely on the open market as such as for 100% of it. We normally approach it and we say to farmers, divide your crop into a third, where you take the first third and that you fix. The second third you fix, but you leave a portion for the upside. So where you can benefit from when there's a price movement or something happens in the market to the upside. And that last third, that you can use to be more aggressive in terms of what you want to do. But if you go with the full basket into one of those lines, then again you can either lose money from being too conservative, or you lose everything because you speculated.
So Dawie, is Nico talking about diversification?
Yes, definitely diversification, not only in terms of on-farm, within your products and so on, but also diversification in between markets. Seek various markets as well. Geographical diversification, especially if you are a bigger farmer. Geographical diversification becomes more important to make sure that you benefit from various seasons as well. So that will be key for future survival of our farmers as well.
Okay, and what are you finding within the financial space? On the African continent, is there more participation? We know the bigger banks are situated in South Africa. Are you guys moving up to the rest of the continent and, looking to fund more agriculture?
Well, from a Standard Bank perspective, we are in 20 countries on the continent, where we actively take part in agricultural support to those farmers and to those value chains in those countries. It does differ from country to country in terms of how we approach it. So in a short answer, yes, we are there. I suppose that as these value chains develop and get more stable in terms of how banks look at it, it would allow for additional banks to play there. But at the moment, there's already a fairly fierce competition in those respective geographies.
Okay, so Dawie, away from the pandemic and everything, are we still in an exciting space on the African continent when it comes to agriculture?
Definitely. I think Africa has a lot of potential in terms of agriculture. If you look at investments, not only within Africa, but from outside Africa into agriculture in African countries, it's massive. Even some of our local South African farmers investing highly in African countries. So the potential is there. We just need to develop that. And even if we look from within Africa, the potential is definitely growing. And I think what's important is we mustn't try and copy what we do in South Africa in other countries. Treat each country as its own and then you will develop the sector to its full potential.
Nico, somebody's got to feed the world. We can.
And I guess that's the good part of agriculture. It is the industry. You referred to the COVID pandemic, and agriculture during that period was one of the industries that kept on going because we have to feed the world. So that in itself is a huge positive for agriculture.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through to Tech Terrain and sharing some of your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you have it, Nico and Dawie telling us, you know what, it's still an exciting space on the continent. At the present moment, we are going through the pandemic, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Now, earlier on, we spoke about the effect COVID-19 is having on imported inputs in the agricultural sector. Well, I'm glad to say I've actually now got an input supplier to that sector to talk about the effect the pandemic has had on them. Linda van der Merwe joins me now from Corteva. Linda, welcome to Tech Terrain. Are you well?
I'm well, thank you, Tony, and thank you for the opportunity.
Linda, tell us about Corteva. What is Corteva?
Well, Corteva Agri-Science's purpose is to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume to ensure progress for generations to come. So we are in the privileged situation of providing an encompassing portfolio to growers ranging from seed to crop protection and to digital solutions, also backed up by a solid pipeline of new technology and germplasm.
Okay. What challenges are you facing right now due to the pandemic?
Well, of course, various challenges. I think first up is if one looks at logistics, in the broader Africa sense, we've seen a number of challenges in terms of border control, only following protocols, also delays. Thinking about shipments that had to be received on the African coastline, again, a lot of delays and many times missing the planting window. And then I think last but not least, it's the currency devaluation that had a huge impact on uncertainty in terms of what to plant for the next season, and trying to mitigate all of these uncertainties in a time like this.
Okay, are you managing your way around them, navigating your way through it to a certain extent?
I must say our internal supply chain has done a brilliant job in terms of resilience and making creative plans to ensure that our growers can still have the product on farm. Not everyone has been that lucky.
Talking about that, what do you foresee? I mean, in the next, let's say 12 months, the economy, the agricultural economy on the continent, do you think we're going to suffer?
We are going to face numerous challenges. If one looks at sub-Saharan Africa, we see a cut of about 23% in remittances, which will have an impact on small-scale growers, specifically in Central Africa, in terms of their ability to plant and to be profitable. I think secondly also the availability of labour. We've seen Europe suffering a lot due to that, and luckily if one looks at Africa, South Africa for an example was in a great position to increase its exports due to the availability of labour. However, going forward and the availability thereof remains uncertain.
So you could have a big problem when it comes to profitability, which of course affects everything when it comes to any type of business.
No, of course, and I think that's where it's most important to not only look at your input cost, but look at yield, look at ultimately very favourable commodity prices out there, and to see what can be achieved by providing your crop with the best possible technology out there.
What are you doing as Corteva to help some of the farmers on the continent mitigate some of these challenges?
I must say that the past couple of weeks has been tremendous to see the digital uptake in terms of grower behaviour. We've actually done some research and technology demonstration fields where we've invited growers to participate via Zoom to experience our technology firsthand in the fields. Obviously, we were not in a position to invite them face-to-face to experience this. Secondly, we've done a lot of training, technical training in terms of correct product application, stewardship, safe handling. All of this done in a digital manner, and really been surprised by the uptake, specifically in Kenya, in terms of this kind of behavior.
I want to talk about that in terms of regions, because you've got the East African region, which is very tech savvy to a certain extent. Are you finding Africa warming up to a lot of the new technology in the farming arena?
Most definitely. If one compares this current pandemic to previously in 2018, where the world faced more or less the same pandemic, if one just looks at digital behavior in terms of pre-buying behavior, the digital uptake has been tremendous, but also in terms of repurchasing. So definitely not only because of a younger generation coming to farm, but also because of a much more efficient way of doing business.
Let's talk about the new norm that everyone is talking about now in every single different sector. Do you see us now having to adapt and maybe change the way our behavior when it comes to farming?
Well, farming remains a highly relational business, and it's important for growers to have the technical experts on their lands and to advise them and to support them. And obviously following protocols, we are still very much doing that. However, as an organization, we have realized that many other things, such as training, which I mentioned, such as grower interaction on a large scale and gathering thoughts and sharing thoughts on best practice, all of that can change towards a more digital channel, not only addressing more efficient use of time, but also efficient use of capacity internally of the organization.
So Linda, we're living in a very environmentally aware world at the present moment, which is critical, which is very important. As input suppliers to the agricultural sector broadly, how are you handling that?
Well, of course, one looks or need to look at this holistically. So from logistics to the whole supply chain, how to shorten this in terms of a shorter route to market to get the products on the farm, but then ultimately to ensure that whatever solution is put out there is sustainable and environmentally friendly. And this ranges from the way it's being applied, the way the product is being applied, to stewardship in terms of farm workers, in terms of training, on safe use of product, and then obviously also carbon footprint in terms of packaging material.
Well, Linda, the pandemic has restricted movement, has restricted imports and exports, and obviously many African countries have suffered from this, especially in the agricultural sector. Talk to us about a couple of examples.
Yeah, so Africa exports annually about $35 billion US. And what we see is 80% of these countries that we do export to have been severely hit by COVID, Central Europe, East, Southern, Central Asia. To take a few examples, Kenya horticulture is losing about $3.5 million US a day due to decreased demand. That's slowly getting better, but still the outlook is very bleak. We all know what happened to Kenya export flour business. Luckily, the demand is there again for about 3.5 tons per day, but due to the lack of air cargo, we can only manage that supply in terms of 1,000 tons a day. And then last but not least is the Ghana cocoa market. As said by the chairman of COCOBOD, just immediately after COVID, the country suffered a $1 billion deficit just due to the lack of demand in cocoa.
Okay, so Linda, so those are some of the challenges, but there are a few bright spots at the present moment, including Ethiopia.
There are many bright spots. So Ethiopia Airlines, globally award-winning airlines, has been so creative in terms of how they operate their fleet. So they actually one of the national carriers that did adopt their business model to be able to support export agriculture to the rest of the world.
But I suppose at the same time, this gives us an opportunity to change our behavior, take advantage of these challenges.
No, for sure, Tony. It was a wake-up call for many of us, taking stock of what we do, how we keep ourselves busy throughout the day and how we can do things better. No doubt in my mind, Africans are resilient. We are known to overcome challenges, and this one, for sure, we will overcome.
All right, Linda, thank you so much for coming through to Tech Terrain. Good chatting with you.
Thank you, Tony.
There you have it. Linda van der Merwe from Corteva says we must be resilient like we've always been. This pandemic will be over. Right, it's time to focus on service and parts and how that correlates with the John Deere brand promise. And I've got two of the John Deere team with me here, Henty Breert and Karen Mungle. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Henty, let me start with you, sir. How does that correlate, the John Deere brand promise and service and parts?
Tony, yes, thank you. At John Deere, we realized that when our customers buy John Deere equipment, they not only invest in the quality and technologically advanced products, but also in a support network that will last the lifetime of the equipment. Now, an integral part of that support network is the constant availability and supply of spare parts. And therefore, we have the John Deere Parts Regional Distribution Centre, which is based in Kempton Park in Johannesburg. And our facility forms part of John Deere's global parts distribution network. The facility covers an area of about 20,000 square meters. And to put that into perspective, it's equal to the size of 3 rugby fields.
Wow.
And from there, we supply parts to more than 100 John Deere dealer outlets across sub-Saharan Africa. One way how we support this is the availability of parts. So we have more than 74,000 different line items available, or part numbers, to a value of just over R1 billion.
But the key thing here is, Karen, a part is not just a part.
Correct, Tony. A part is not a part. So John Deere is not only in the business of manufacturing machines, but we manufacture, design and engineer our parts according to the specifications of our machines. And we invest in the research and the development of our parts and our lubricants to protect our reputation.
Okay, so talk to me a bit more about oils, because it is really important what you put into your engine, isn't it?
Correct, because the perception in the market is that oil is oil. And we as John Deere, we disagree with that statement. And the reason being is that our oil exceeds the American Petroleum Institute. So there we pride ourselves to be the industry leaders in the specification of our oils. And again to that, our oils is developed and it's tested for off-road conditions. These oils go through rigorous testings under harsh conditions. While other oils are designed for on-road applications, the John Deere oil is designed for off-road and on-road applications. And again, we give you extended 500-hour service interval when used with a John Deere filter. And this oil is available at any authorized John Deere dealer. So we ask you, when you're looking for an engine oil for your operation, please consider the John Deere oil.
Okay, Henty, so you spoke a little bit earlier on about the wide network you have in sub-Saharan Africa. How do John Deere support that network?
Tony, yes, we are very focused on an ultimate customer experience, and we want to minimize downtime in the field of the equipment, of course. But on the other side, we want to run an efficient and effective business as well. Now, in order to support all of that, we have various in-house John Deere systems, which we focus on, and also the support of John Deere globally, as well as different sub-departments or divisions at the REC. And if you allow me to quickly stand still at 2 of them. First of all, we have our operations, and of course they are responsible for inbound, or that's the receiving of our parts, the sorting, the storing, inventory management, inventory control, and then in the end to pick and pack these parts to satisfy dealer orders or dealer demand. We get about 70% of our parts from our main parts distribution center in Central America, about 25% from Germany, and we have some local content as well. To give you an idea, on an average day, we handle about 3,000 line items or different part numbers, and that equates back to roughly 25,000 individual parts pieces. And that we do with only 20 employees working 1 shift a day. Now, how this is possible, once again, with the support from John Deere globally, we have various metrics which we focus on a daily, a monthly or weekly basis. And 3 of the important ones for our customers and dealers specifically is, first of all, quality, or that's picking errors. We want to ensure the customers and the dealers receive the correct parts the first time. Therefore, we focus on minimizing errors, and current performance is 5 errors per 1,000 lines, which we picked and shipped. Or if you revert it back, that's an accuracy of 99.5%. Then, of course, for efficiency and effectiveness, we measure productivity in lines per hours. And then lastly, inventory integrity is also important. If an employee of a dealer is sitting in front of his computer, he wants to order or investigate a certain part number, he can see the available parts we have at the RDC. Many times he communicates that to a customer as well. Therefore, we need to ensure that whatever is visible on his screen, we have physically available in the warehouse. Our accuracy there at this stage is just over 99.7%. To relate all of this back to our dealers, we also have a customer service department. And they are mainly there to support with technical queries for our dealers or customers, and then to assist them in order progress. Now, lastly, we offer 3 types of orders to our dealers. First of all is stock orders, and that's, as the name indicates, it's for their inventory, their stock. But it happens from time to time that they need parts fairly quickly or for emergency situations, and they don't have it in stock on their shelves. In this case, they can place a machine down order, and they can place it up to 3 p.m. or 3 o'clock this afternoon, and then it's delivered anywhere in South Africa by 10:30 tomorrow morning, or within 1 to 3 days in the rest of the sub-Saharan African countries. And then lastly, especially in our harvesting and planting season, there are critical machine breakdowns, and the technician cannot wait until the next morning to receive a part and repair the machine. In those cases, we offer what we call a will call order service. So a dealer can place an order and it can be collected at the RDC within 2 hours.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. Karen, please talk to me about the warranties available to your clients.
So Tony, for our original equipment parts, we have a 1-year warranty, and we now have an alternative parts solution which also has a 1-year warranty. So ultimately, a customer will still get a John Deere experience using it's the same dealer, the same technician, and get an affordable part at an affordable price.
So Karen, John Deere has been on the African continent for over 80 years. So I'm assuming there must be a lot of older machinery on the continent. But you've got something that caters for that, isn't it? It's called a service box. Explain that to me.
So our service box is actually tied to our aftermarket solution. And our aftermarket solution is for all the older machines. So what we offer is package service intervals of parts for all our older machines.
Henty and Karen, thank you so much for coming through to Tech Terrain.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, there you have it. Over 100 dealer locations throughout sub-Saharan Africa. So you can rest assured that you are covered by John Deere. Well, that's it for this episode of Tech Terrain. Make sure you join us again next time. We'll be looking at research in the agri sector. And also go on to our website where we bring you a lot of bonus material that we upload every single week. For myself, Tony Ndoro, until next time, bye-bye.